UFC Fight Night Vegas 41, Costa versus Vettori takes place in only a matter of hours, and this is my last minute detailed prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. I'm not just saying who I believe is going to win. I've already done that earlier this week. I'm trying to call every single fight, exactly how it's going to go, down to a T, what round it's going to finish in, what the scorecards are going to be if it goes to a decision, if someone's going to knock someone down in one round but come back in the other two, what submission is going to be used to achieve a finish, what limb is going to be used for a KO blow. I'm calling everything exactly how it's going to go, starting with the early prelim opener of Jonathan Martinez versus Lzviad Lazvishvili. I'm going to be going with Lzviad Lazvishvili on short notice here. I believe I'm going to take him to beat Jonathan Martinez. I like Jonathan Martinez, but I believe that Lzviad's going to be able to have a bit of a grappling advantage, and I believe he does have a very fast starting style, and Jonathan Martinez, coming off that KO loss to Davy Grant, I believe we could be witnessing a knockdown to a submission from Lzviad Lazvishvili. I think Jonathan Martinez is going to be doing quite well. Lzviad's going to explode, catch Jonathan Martinez on the chin. Jonathan Martinez shoots in on a takedown. Lzviad Lazvishvili gets a nice guillotine choke after dropping Jonathan Martinez on the feet, puts him to the ground. Martinez tries to close the distance, get into the clinch, get into a takedown position so he's not going to get ground and pounded, and that's when Lzviad pulls the guillotine and gets Jonathan Martinez whilst he's concussed. Lzviad Lazvishvili gets this one done. Moving on up the card, Livia Souza versus Randa Markos. I'm going to go for Livia Souza by decision. I believe every single round, Randa Markos is going to be desperately trying to get it to the ground. I think Livia Souza is just going to outstrike her on the feet every single round I see here. Just slightly outstrike her. Maybe 23-19 in the first round, 18-15 in the second round, and then maybe a 15-11 in the third round. I think it's going to be competitive. Randa Markos is going to try and get the clinch against the cage, try some takedowns after getting outstruck early on the feet. But Livia Souza is going to stuff those takedowns, land knees in the clinch, land more total strikes against the cage, and win this fight 30-27 in a shutout performance. Competitive, but clearly to Livia Souza by decision, 30-27 every single round. Moving on up the card, Jeff Molina versus Daniel Lacerda. I'm going to go with Jeff Molina by decision here again. I think Jeff Molina is going to have a trouble first round with Daniel Lacerda. I think that Lacerda is going to have a good first round here. Push Jeff Molina up against the cage, land some good shots on the feet, maybe win some stand-up exchanges, get a takedown at the end of round one, end the round on top, land some decent total strikes of ground and pound, win the first round against Jeff Molina in a very competitive round. But I think as the rounds go on, the cardio is going to be a massive factor here from Jeff Molina. I think he's going to start landing some good body shots, landing some good leg kicks in round two. I think he's going to win a competitive round two, this time stuffing the takedown of Daniel Lacerda. Lacerda's going to start gassing because he's failing some of those takedowns. He's missing a lot more shots on the feet. He's being hit to the body. He's being hit to the legs. The third round's going to come around and Jeff Molina's going to start taking off, doing really well, winning the third round for himself extremely comfortably. And I think he's going to win this one 29-28 after losing the first round, winning the last two. Unanimous decision to Jeff Molina. Moving on up the card, Kamaru Worthy versus Jai Herbert. I'm going to go with Jai Herbert here. I think he's going to finish Kamaru Worthy inside the first round. Kamaru Worthy's good, but I think he's going to miss a lot of shots on the feet. I think Jai Herbert's footwork's going to be a big deal here. I don't see any grappling going down whatsoever. Don't think Kamaru Worthy's going to get this one to the ground, and I don't think Jai Herbert's going to want this one on the ground either. I think Kamaru Worthy's going to be reaching for shots, lunging for shots. I think one time in the first round, about 2 minutes in maybe, he's going to leap in with a lead hook, trying to catch Jai Herbert after missing a couple of shots early on. He's going to miss. He's going to leave himself extended. Jai Herbert's going to fire a straight hand right down the pipe on the chin of Kamaru Worthy, which will wobble him. He'll wobble all the way over to the cage. Jai Herbert will land a couple more shots. Kamaru Worthy will panic a takedown. Jai Herbert will stuff it, let him get back up. Kamaru Worthy's going to be backing up against the cage. Herbert's starting to land some good body shots, some good head shots, and then Kamaru Worthy will be covered up against the cage, rocked and wobbled, and Jai Herbert will get the tie clinch and blast knees into his face, finishing with ground and pound afterwards against the cage to a TKO finish, knees to ground and pound from Jai Herbert after a big right hand in the early going of the round. First round KO for Jai Herbert. Moving on up the card, Jamie Pickett versus Laureano Staropoli. I'm calling a snooze fest here. I think Laureano Strapoli's going to go out there, lose some exchanges early on the feet, but get the clinch and push Jamie Pickett to the cage, take the backside, do what Roman Dolidze did to him. I can see happening. I think he's going to knee at the fire. I think he's going to hook up one of the legs. I think he's going to push a little sweep, a trip, something along those lines, just smack out the heel of Jamie Pickett and just sort of drag him to the ground, end up in side control in half guard, landing some good shots at the end of those rounds. And I think it's going to be a stalemate against the cage, with Laureano Staropoli getting the better of it. Pickett getting some moments on the feet here and there, but Laureano keeping him honest with some big shots back. But I think Laureano's going to get the grappling going, use some nice trips against the cage, some maybe like outside trips, stuff like that, some Cejudo Demetrius Johnson style trips I think he's going to use on him, hooking the leg when they're both square up against each other in over-unders. And I think Laureano Staropoli's going to put on a grappling clinic and have a bit of a snooze fest of a fight, but a good win from him. 30-27 to Laureano Staropoli. He gets this one done. Moving on up the card, Tabatha Ricci versus Maria Oliveira. I'm going to go with Maria Oliveira. I think she wins this one by decision. I think Tabatha Ricci's going to have a good first round. I think she's going to land some decent shots. I think she's going to maybe have some moments on the ground where she gets a sudden takedown, but Maria Oliveira ends up back on her feet against the cage, but Tabatha Ricci lands some good shots again. Maria de Oliveira is landing some good knees in the clinch, but the big moments of the first round I think are going to go to Tabatha Ricci. Then, as the rounds go on, Ricci's going to start to get a bit tired. Maria Oliveira's not gone out of there so quickly. Maria Oliveira's going to start to land some front kicks, some jabs, some body kicks, some leg kicks from range. She's going to start to land some big knees in the clinch, whilst Tabatha Ricci shoots for some failed takedowns, ends up in the clinch, gets kneed in the face a couple of times, gets kneed to the body a couple of times as well. Maria Oliveira starts taking over in round 2. Then I'll say a round 3, 10-8 round for Maria de Oliveira, winning on the feet early, but then getting a takedown at the end, ending up on top in crucifix, landing big punches, but Tabatha Ricci somehow survives. I'll call a 29-27 unanimous decision upset for Maria de Oliveira, winning this fight as it goes on in the later rounds. Moving on up the card, Mason Jones versus David Onama. I'm going to go with Mason Jones, but I'm worried, okay? David Onama is very, very good, and he's actually a really good underdog, but he's from a lower weight class. He hasn't fought great competition so far in his career, and I don't think he's got the power to finish Mason Jones in the first round, because Mason Jones has been out there, and this fight's just got added to the card, so I'm going to give a bit more of a rough assessment here. Mason Jones has been dropped by welterweights. He gets back up, he finishes him like Adam Proctor. Adam Proctor, I believe he's 11-2 right now on the regional scene in the UK. He's beat great opponents. He's beat names that you'll recognise like Mason Jones himself. He's very good. And he caught Mason Jones, and Jones took it very well, got right back up and got right back to work. I think David Onama's going to have a moment early on in this fight where he looks like he might rock Mason Jones for a second, but then he's going to rush in for a finish. Mason Jones gets the clinch, pushes him against the cage, wins the moment there, lands some knees to the fire, lands a couple of knees to the body, goes for a takedown. It's going to be one of those positions where David Onama's got a whizzer position, but Jones is sort of just anchoring onto him and landing big punches against the cage on the face of David Onama. Then Onama's going to start to slow down after his big moment early where he maybe rocks Mason Jones in an exchange. Mason Jones starts picking up the pace as the fight goes on, really badly hurting him with the knees against the cage, really badly hurting him in the second round as well. Then I think he's going to get a takedown, and I'll say a ground and pound TKO for Mason Jones. Turns into a rear naked choke maybe at some point in the third or second round. Mason Jones gets this one done as the fight goes on with a finish, because David Onama's just used up all of his moves. He's tried to get it done with a quick explosive burst. Hasn't worked out for him. He's taken some knees to the body, and he starts to break down as the fight goes on and gets finished. Moving on, but Onama's a really good underdog though. So the odds are good. Mason Jones should not be a big favourite that he is. He should be like a slight favourite here, in my opinion. Onama fought a couple of weeks ago, but I just don't think he's ready yet. Moving on up the card, Park Jun-Yong versus Gregory Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Park Jun-Yong. I thought they were the same height. They're not the same height, let's just say. But I think Park Jun-Yong's got good enough grappling, good enough tenacity, good enough cardio. I think Gregory Rodriguez is going to have him in all kinds of trouble in the first round. I think he's going to be out grappling him against the cage, landing big shots on the feet, but Park Jun-Yong staying in there, not taking too much of a beating. But I think Gregory Rodriguez is going to win the first round very clearly, getting a lot of takedowns after hurting Park Jun-Yong on the feet early. Jun-Yong's going to have his own moments, punching back in the clinch, kneeing in the clinch as well. But Gregory Rodriguez is going to keep taking him down, but I think Park Jun-Yong is going to continue to get up over and over and over again, not secede a bad position to Gregory Rodriguez, who's going to start to gas out from using so many takedown attempts and not getting what he wants from it, which is some good control time. And I think as the fight goes on, Park Jun-Yong's going to start to reverse some of those clinches, start landing some knees of his own, start landing some punches on the break, start working the body at range, and I think he's going to slowly start to break down Gregory Rodriguez, have his moments as this fight goes on, and win at 29-28. Park Jun-Yong, close second round that he edges, third round quite clear for Park Jun-Yong. He gets it done as the fight goes on. Moving on, up the card, Nikolai Negumereanu versus Ike Villanueva. I'm going to call a second round TKO for Nikolai Negumereanu. I think Ike Villanueva's good, doesn't move his head, really bad head movement. I think I'm going to call Nikolai Negumereanu landing some good shots on the feet, whipping in and out, landing some good hooks over the top of EK's shots, pushing him backwards, landing some kicks against the cage, chopping at the legs, chopping at the body, throwing some head kicks out there as well, getting very creative with his kicks at range, breaking down the guard of EK with Villanueva, maybe hurting him to body at one point, but EK sort of puts on a poker face, lives through it, chopping at his legs, making EK step funny on one of his legs, rocking him on the feet towards the end of the first round, and the second round's going to come around. EK's going to get hurt to the leg again, start taking some funny steps, start taking some body shots, and then Nikolai's going to put him away against the cage and just get a clean KO with like a stiff right hand right on the shin of EK Villanueva, who's broken down against the cage. Nikolai gets this one done by TKO in the second round, maybe even a KO. Moving on up the card, Francisco Trinaldo versus Dwight Grant. I'm going to go a very boring snooze fest decision win for Francisco Trinaldo here over Dwight Grant. I think he's going to push him up against the cage, knee him to the fire, get a couple of takedowns here and there, win the first two rounds, get dropped at one moment in the third round maybe and have a bit of a moment where, wow, it's crazy, but then he gets to clinch again. Pushes Dwight Grant up against the cage, lands some punches in the clinch. I think he's just going to barely win this one. I think he's going to barely scrape it by in these rounds, being a bit more busy, pushing the pace, being the guy that's pushing against the cage. I don't think anyone's really going to land anything too crazy until maybe the third round, where Dwight Grant has enough and lands a big shot at the start of the third when Trinaldo starts to slow down. But I think overall Trinaldo's going to hold him against the cage, win those moments there, be the busier man, land some leg kicks at range, land some decent punches at range, and get this one done by a very mediocre decision win, by maybe split decision, I'll say, 29-28, split decision, hot take. Moving on up the card, Alex Caceres versus Seung Woo Choi. I'm going to go with Seung Woo Choi winning this one via body shot TKO. I'm going to go with. I think he's going to destroy the legs of Alex Caceres here. And I'm going to go with a third round body hook TKO for Seung Woo Choi. I think Alex Caceres is going to have a decent first round, spinning around, using some different moves, jab inside kick and throwing a lead leg hook kick, stuff like that you don't really see too often. Seung Woo Choi is going to pick his shots, land some good jabs to the body at range, keep a very stationary target in Alex Caceres, cut him off against a cage, close him down, chop at the legs, start to spin Alex Caceres around with some of his leg kicks, land some inside leg kicks, another jab to the body lands while Caceres throws like a lead leg hook kick that somewhat gets blocked. I think Caceres just won't land anything too clean. A lot of it will be blocked, but he'll be throwing a lot of shots in the early round, maybe even visibly winning the round, even though maybe he shouldn't. So Seung Woo Choi is going to chop at the legs, knock him off balance a couple of times, kick the legs while Caceres is on the ground doing that thing that jiu-jitsu guys do where they say, look, come into my guard. Seung Woo Choi is having none of it, kicking the legs while he's a downed opponent, getting back up, kick the legs again, hit the body. Caceres is really starting to limp around come the third round of the fight, in my opinion. He's eating some knees to the body, he's eating some good body hooks against the cage as well, and some big headshots that have somewhat rocked him. I think he's going to get his leg chopped against the cage again. He's going to start shelling up, being really defensive, trying to make something happen. Seung Woo Choi rips in a nice lead left hook to the liver and finishes Alex Caceres with a body shot in the third round with a liver shot. Plus, Caceres is vegan, weak as fuck body. Moving on up the card, Jessica Rose Clark versus Joselyne Edwards. I think Rose Clark is just going to get outranged here. I think she's going to be very frustrated, and I think she's going to get 30-27 upset decisioned by Joselyne Edwards, who I believe is going to stick at range, land the jab, land a straight right hand, jab to body kick, jab 2, leg kick, jab 2, head kick. I think she's just going to keep throwing a lot of these long-range shots against Jessica Rose Clark, who's not going to be getting what she wants, and I think she's going to get her nose kind of busted up, her eye swollen up a little bit with a jab at range, and I think Joselyne Edwards going to maybe like defend takedowns that Jessica Rose Clark goes for in panic from losing on the feet and not landing the shots that she wants to land. She gets kneed in the body a couple of times, gets turned around in the clinch, maybe taken down in one moment, and I think it's just going to be a very frustrating and overwhelming fight for Jessica Rose Clark, where she just can't find her way into range and overcome that 3-inch reach advantage in height, with leg reach especially, and also a 5.5-inch reach advantage with the hands as well. I don't see her getting past that reach of Joselyne Edwards, who's looked decently okay so far. Rose Clark's nothing too crazy either, but I'm going to go with Joselyne Edwards here, being frustrating at range compared to Jessica Rose Clark. Moving on up the card, Grant Dawson versus Rick Glenn. I'm going to go with Grant Dawson via submission due to an arm triangle in round 2. At the end of round 2, I believe. Grant Dawson goes out there. Rick Glenn starts fast, goes crazy, looks for a big moment, a big finish. Grant Dawson lands a big shot back, but Rick Glenn lands a big shot as well, and everyone's going, whoa, this one's going crazy. They ain't wasting no time tonight. There's no feeling that process here. Rick Glenn's going real fast, looking for a big shot early. Out of nowhere, Grant Dawson blasts double leg takedown, stops all of the forward momentum of Rick Glenn after maybe Rick Glenn lands a big shot, goes to follow up, gets taken down as he rushes in. Grant Dawson starts doing some little total strikes to the body, total strikes to the head. Rick Glenn gets back up, so Grant Dawson holds him up against the cage, knees the fire, punches the head, lands some good knees to the body against there. Rick Glenn separates, goes back at range. Grant Dawson chops at his legs, lands some big shots of his own at the end of the round. 10-9 first round to Grant Dawson. Round 2 again. Rick Glenn, same thing again, I believe. Grant Dawson lands some good shots on the feet. Rick Glenn lands a good shot on the feet. He goes in. He gets taken down again. He's visibly frustrated, like, oh my god, it's happened again. I rushed in. I got taken down. Grant Dawson's going to be on top. This time pass over to half guard. Rick Glenn's going to try and get back up, but Grant Dawson's going to keep top position, push him back down to the ground and pass into side control maybe. Land some good shots. Pass over. Get the arm triangle. Rick Glenn's going to try and scramble, give up the arm triangle position. Grant Dawson puts it in and puts a submission on him at the end of the second round after a sort of smothering ground game of total strikes to the head and to the body. Maybe Rick Glenn's bleeding a little bit out of one of his eyes. I think Grant Dawson gets this one done by second round arm triangle. Moving on up the card, Paulo Costa versus Marvin Vettori. The breakdown you've all been waiting for. I believe Marvin Vettori's got this one via 4th round submission, rear naked choke. I think Paulo Costa's going to have a very good first round. I think he's going to look a lot better than Marvin Vettori in the first round. Vettori's going to go out there. He's going to play at range for a little bit. Then Costa's going to sort of gain confidence once he's felt the power of Vettori. I think Vettori's going to land a couple of inside leg kicks, a couple of outside leg kicks. Costa lands maybe a body kick that lands, and Vettori sort of slaps his stomach and goes, come on, man, and acts like he's not hurt by it. Costa lands a couple of good inside leg kicks again. Couple of good hooks over the top, but Vettori stays on him, keeps the jab on him. Costa comes cruising forward, looking for big openings against the cage. Lands a couple, but Vettori gets the clinch. Double unders, turns Costa around, pushes him up against a cage, lands a couple of body shots, lands a couple of knees to the fire. Costa separates, tries to land big shots again, but Costa gets jabbed a couple of times by Vettori, and Vettori moves, takes the center of the cage again. Costa's got to come forward even more, lands a couple of leg kicks. Vettori lands a couple of stiff jabs as Costa comes in that puts off some of his timing. Costa gets Vettori up against the cage again, unloads again with a good barrage that Vettori takes quite well, but I think he's going to take a couple of big shots towards the end of round 1, edging the first round to Paulo Costa. Round 2, Vettori shoots a takedown. Costa stuffs the takedown, lands some big shots on the way back up, starts coming towards Vettori again. Vettori shoots again, doesn't get the takedown, but uses it to push Paulo Costa up against the cage, lands some knees to the fire, lands some body punches against the cage. Costa's starting to get a little bit full, a little bit heavy, blood starting to pump around his body, not so much anymore, starting to get real lactic, real heavy, real exhausted. You can see it on him. He's looking up at the clock. It's towards the midpoint of round 2. Fishes an underhook, separates, but he's much slower on the feet now after working against the cage, fighting for underhooks, trying to get double under against Vettori. Vettori moves, jab to the body, leg kick of his own, jab upstairs, a stiff big right hand from Vettori lands, and he shoots again. Costa gets taken down. edges his way back up to his feet, tries his best, gets back up to his feet, but gets pushed against a cage. Vettori lands some knees to defy again from behind. He's got the backside position now with a body lock against Costa against a cage who's sort of down on all fours, playing that hand game so he doesn't get kneed in the head. Vettori knees him to the body a couple of times, knees him to defy a couple of times. Vettori separates. Costa separates, lands a couple of big punches on Vettori, but Vettori's going to edge the second round. Third round, really different Costa, starting to slow down. Vettori's getting the takedowns now. He's landing good shots on the feet. Costa's trying to come forward with his moments, but every time Vettori's just getting the clinch, turning him around, separating, jabbing, keeping him against the cage. Costa's swinging. He's missing a lot more in the first 2.5 minutes of the round. Vettori's starting to chop at his legs, land a lot of good body kicks now as well, and I think Costa's going to start dipping into a lot of just simple knees from Vettori at range. I think Vettori's going to do a lot of head dipping, like he's going to level change. Costa puts his hands down to like stuff a double leg or a single leg. Vettori just blasts a knee up the middle, lands a good knee on Costa, lands a good knee to the body from on Costa from range, just a simple step in knee, and I think Costa's going to start wrestling a bit himself. Vettori's going to win that moment, get down on top of Costa at the end of the third round, in half guard, landing total strikes, not too much damage, but you can see on Costa's face, his eyes swollen up a bit, his ribs are a bit red, his lips a little bit busted, he's leaking out of one side of his mouth, looking up at the clock, holding on while Vettori lands some shots. Vettori maybe goes into side control, gets some crucifix shots as Costa scrambles up on a single leg at the end of round 3 and pushes Vettori up against a cage. The bell sounds at the end of round 3. Vettori puts his hands up, runs over to his corner. Costa's on his one knee on the ground, looking real defeated, real exhausted. Things haven't gone his way. He didn't get Vettori out of there like he should have done. This time in round 4, Vettori's going to land way more shots on the feet. Costa's going to have one big barrage, one big moment where he lands a good shot on Vettori, starts looking for some big haymakers against the cage, maybe lands a couple of good shots against the cage. Vettori moves, keeps his jab out there, lands a couple of good leg kicks again, a couple of good body kicks again, some front kicks to the body, some knees to the body. Costa gets him against the cage again. Big shots from Costa. Vettori's still in there. Vettori shoots underneath it, gets the double leg. A look of defeat spreads across Paulo Costa's face. He's had his moment. He had Vettori up against the cage. He tried to land his big bombs. He's just thrown a bunch of shots in a row that haven't really got what he wanted out of them. I'm running out of air. Haven't really got what he wanted out of the shots. Vettori blasts a double leg, slams Costa into the mat with a double leg, passes right over into half guard, and Costa's looking up at the clock like, fuck. This might be it for me. Big shots from Vettori in total strikes. Tries to get mount. Does get mount. Lands some good shots. Costa bucks out of it. Vettori back into half guard. Lands big shots again. They're over against the cage. Costa tries to get up and run to the cage to try and get to safety. That's when Vettori jumps on his back, puts the hooks in, gets the body lock. Costa's starting to get tired. He's covering up his head as Costa lands big shots to the behind of the ear section on top of him. Travis Brown, Brendan Schaub style with that kind of finish. Landing those shots behind the ear as Costa's trying to cover up, roll over. He gives up mount again. He gives up his back again. Tries to posture up. Neck taken. Vettori puts the rear naked choke in. Rolls to his back. Costa taps. Fight's over. Vettori gets up and screams like a fucking orc. Fight's over. Vettori. 4th round submission. Rear naked choke at the end of the 4th round. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Hopefully I get this correct, because that would be something, I believe. Toodle pip. If you enjoy these types of videos, I typically do them every week, and I do content like this every week as well, so tune in. See you later. Goodbye. Goodbye. I haven't stopped recording. I just said goodbye again. Like a weirdo. Goodbye. Fuck off now, for real.